Marcus,
Big
Dutchy,
fun.
Good morning, everybody. How are you guys?
good morning. How is your trades or your trade going?
My trade, I don't trade anymore. I just buy. I buy and I buy and I buy and I buy every chance I get. But
What are you
I have a little strategy with
what are
buying.
you
I don't
what are
know.
you buying?
Oh, just Bitcoin.
Okay.
How many Ethereum do you have?
Yeah.
Oh,
Post
okay.
merge.
Okay. Are we okay? So me and Raoul Powell, right? I mean, that's kind of how I got into it. I was part of Real Vision and I watched almost every interview and I would Google every term to learn. I did this maybe 4 or 5 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Learning all about financial markets and things like that. And then he got into Bitcoin. I'm like, okay, I'll follow him into that trade. And then he took a left turn into Ethereum. I'm like, what? And that was the first time where I started sort of thinking for myself, thinking, no, this is not good. So how many Ethereum? Zero Ethereum.
Ooh,
This
wow.
is the way.
Look at
That,
that's pretty good.
that
You didn't get caught in by the snare of Raw Vision.
Yeah, well, it's pretty I don't know, not tempting. He's a very good salesman. I mean, he's a great salesman, right? He's really good that way. But
It's that accent
he
and the chest hair,
the chest hair, that's right, and the beach, on the beach with his dogs, the videos at Christmas and things like that. But
the pool
I
table in
think,
the background.
I mean, if I think about Vitalik as a person, I see a young person who likes to game. I mean, his whole thing was gaming, and then he lost his gaming swords or his gaming guns, and it upset him so greatly. And then he built a system based on that belief. So I see a person that, he doesn't have kids, he doesn't have family, he hasn't matured. And I think his idea of Ethereum has run away from him. And when you have a person at the top of the pyramid and they're the ones sort of controlling it, if he loses hope in his dreams, which is kind of what's happening, then where does the value of that go? I think it's just getting fiatized. I think Ethereum is just going to the fiat world. So those are my thoughts on it. What do you guys think about it?
Marcus, what are your thoughts?
Oh yeah. Honestly, my thoughts were like, let's not make this an Ethereum interview.
Done
That
and dusted.
rabbit
Yep,
hole,
I'm fine.
I'm thinking 70% pre-mine. I'm thinking about him
Yeah,
dumping on
yeah,
retail. I'm thinking
yeah,
about proof of stake, the whole debacle,
yeah,
everything.
yeah,
That endless war of people
yeah,
will eventually find out, sooner now
yeah,
than later, now that they've actually transitioned to proof of stake, which I
yeah,
thought they would never
exactly.
do, because I thought it's just this narrative they'll keep pushing backwards and backwards.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
exactly. No, I'm happy to move on from that.
but
Sometimes though, when I'm
I was
orange
more,
pilling, hey, you
sorry.
go ahead. Sorry, you go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I'm like super curious. I'm sure our guests are as well. It's like, who is Dutchy? How did you get into Bitcoin? I know. I think I met you at the beginning of this year, if I'm not mistaken. I know it
That's
was
correct. Yeah,
January. Time
yeah,
time seems to fly. Like 6 months in Bitcoin sometimes feels like a full year or longer in
Longer.
Bitcoin,
Yeah.
with all the news happening. And I think we were like exchanging some sats back and forth to show each other how Lightning Network works and build Lightning transaction. And
yeah.
of
You were
course,
super cool.
I was triggered by your name being Dutchy, and I was in Amsterdam at the time. I mean, I'm still Dutch. I lived there for 24 years. I'm in Medellin, Colombia now. But yeah, it turned out you weren't Dutch. So maybe we can start with a little quick introduction. And we love a good Bitcoiner story and how you got into Bitcoin. You already mentioned Raoul Paul, which I agree. The guy is a super
Right.
smart guy. I used to be a fan of him as well, until
Right.
that moment when he started Real Vision Crypto, and I
Yeah,
made some
yeah,
memes about that as well. But
yeah, for sure.
yeah,
Well,
so who is Dutchy? How were
who
you
am I?
primed
Who
for
am I?
Bitcoin? Are you like a technical person? Are you working in finance? Like what
No,
got
I
you
work in
interested
I,
in
I
Bitcoin?
work in healthcare, right? I work with cancer patients actually. So that's my shtick. And I work in radiation. So I understand exponential power, because radiation energy is an exponential decay. And that exponential understanding of life, of how money works and energy works, it gets translated into Bitcoin. So for me to make the I guess to understand Bitcoin, it was really simple because I understand exponential growth and exponential decay. So that was sort of the first thing. And of course, I like keeping my money, and I'm at the end of the baby boomer in Gen X right now. I'm sort of at the Gen X. So everything that's been set up, the front curve of the baby boom gets the first pickings, the houses and all that. And the Gen X and Gen Y and Gen Z, there's nothing left. And so I'm really interested in seeing where the value of life, I guess, and where you can store your worked energy, your own value. So, there's mutual funds, and then there's, what was that? When you rebalance your portfolios, yeah, all that investing that you go to the bank and you lose a ton of money and pay a ton of fees. And I thought I could do this better myself if I can, if I can run a linear accelerator, I can figure out finance. So I spent a lot of time teaching myself with finance, and what came out of that is Bitcoin. That is the only, I see it as the only hope for people who don't already have economic power or stored energy wealth. And yeah, that's where I kind of ended up with it. And so now that I've been studying it, I find that Bitcoin, it moves across all kinds of paradigms of society. I mean, it's not only finance, it's not only science, it's not only math, it's not only government. It moves across so many areas of science, and I see it as almost a way of being, if that makes sense. Is that too ultra religious? It's not sounding religious, but anyway, what would be your thoughts on that?
It honestly, that kind of just blew my mind. I'm very impressed. So first of all, did not know that you were an oncologist. And really, I totally agree, right? A lot of people don't see Bitcoin for what it is. And just like the old Jeff Booth example, right? A lot of people don't understand exponentials.
Yes.
He talks about how if you fold a paper over 50 times, where do you think that goes to? And I think it goes up to the sun or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That sort of folding. And I think, I've also read and listened to a lot of Jordan Peterson over the last 4 years. I mean, sometimes he gets a bit extreme, but doesn't everybody who has a message? And he talks a lot about how societies are being run right now. This is a bit of I've not spoken about this, but maybe I'll try to make it up as I go here,
Yeah.
about how men are practical and can be tyrannical, and how women are neurotic but caring. It's kind of the extreme ends of both characters. I'm not saying men and women, I'm saying masculine and feminine, because you can be a tomboy, you can be a sissy guy,
Yeah.
But I mean, be yourself, right? But I think right now, this is going to sound really weird, but with the advent of birth control, all of a sudden we've got all this energy where women aren't taking care of children anymore. Because before then, you didn't have a choice to have a kid. You just were saddled with 10 of them, right? And so all that energy, all that caring, that neurotic energy gets set into society. And now it's in positions of power. And we're making decisions in society based on that. Like nuclear energy is getting scrapped like crazy because it's harmful, and we need to move into nuclear energy. I work in nuclear energy, right? So we need to move that way because it's incredibly safe. But we need to move away from the emotional decision making and back to the practical. Now, I don't know if that made sense, but that's sort of one of the streams that I think about, how to get the energy out of coal and fossil fuels and into clean, tight nuclear energy. So what are you guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah, it definitely seems now, whether it's men and women or whether it's just people in general that have been making a lot of decisions based off their emotions, who knows, right? And so I think But I do agree that what we've seen lately is just a loss of truth in
Yes.
that there's no, that not only is there a loss of truth, it's that there is no truth. It's whatever I
Yes.
feel like today or whatever I feel like tomorrow. And that can change. The truth can change. 2 + 2 =
Yeah.
5 now.
Yeah.
And you see that, and I don't mean to keep harping on Ethereum, but
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Vitalik came out and said, with Bitcoin, it has physics in proof of work. With Ethereum, we're not subjected to the physics of the real world. And
We don't want to be constrained by the laws of physics.
Exactly.
So what
Exactly.
he's
And it's
saying
back
is,
to gaming. I mean, that's a game. That's setting up a whole kind of a game where you can just tweak the rules so you can win, or you can change things so it suits the way you're feeling. Once again,
Yeah.
it's not what it is. The Bitcoin is just Bitcoin is, and then that's it. There's you can add all kinds of definers after it.
well, and that's the big thing. That's why we say Bitcoin is truth, because it relies on mathematics to be consistent and to be truth. And it's a point of truth that we can all agree on because it uses physics in the real world and energy. And the reality is something like Ethereum is not truth because it's subject to rulers who can change from day to day, where Bitcoin is unchanging. And because it's unchanging, then it's a focal point that you can rely on. And I think that's, you know, when you think
Yes.
about
Yes.
a lot of truth, where we're talking about nuclear energy, why are we not using nuclear energy today? And maybe, you know, also as Bitcoiners, one of the things we talk about is that you have to follow the incentives. So maybe there's energy companies or oil companies that are in power now that don't want nuclear energy. Who knows? I'm just putting that out there, right?
Right.
Never know
Right.
what
Yeah.
the
Yeah. The
incentives may
incentives.
be. So maybe it's a loss of truth. Maybe that there's misaligned incentives that are out there that are keeping nuclear energy from being used. I'm not exactly sure what the reason is or the reasoning behind not using nuclear energy. If we are in a climate crisis, which is the popular theme today, is that we are in a climate crisis. So if we're in a climate crisis, why are we not using nuclear energy?
I think that is because if you think of the word nuclear, you think of the word radiation and nuclear. I mean, what are the first three images that come to your mind? Right? Yeah. Hiroshima, Nagasaki, 3 Mile Island, Three-Eyed Fish, Bart Simpson. There's no positive image. Burns, radiation burns, right? And I see about 40 patients a day, and I'm not an oncologist, but I work in the radiation industry. I'm a radiation therapist, so I treat patients. And when I get new patients, and on day one, they're so panicky that they're hyperventilating, and they're like those rabbits on the road. Their eyes are wide, and they can barely tolerate the explosion of emotion that they have, because their idea of what's going to happen to them is they're going to get nucleated, you know? And how radiation works, I can give you a little talk about what nuclear energy is. Energy is just a wave. Like me talking to you is a wave right now. It's my voice gets transferred into electrical, or I don't know about phones, how that all works, but I guess it's light energy, right? And then transferred back into sound energy at your end. So if you think of three different types of energy, let's think about a tsunami. And a tsunami is from peak to peak, it's a wave, right? And from peak to peak, it's what, 500 kilometers from the top of the one peak to the next peak. And then you think of a water molecule sitting in that wave. So just stay with me. It's a bit of a long explanation, but think of a water molecule like a beach ball, H2O, right? And it's in that wave. What it does is it simply rises up the water column and rises down the water column. That's the effect of the wave on a water molecule. And the action of that wave is it takes out the town. Now, if there's people in the town, it's a problem. And if there's no people, then it's not. So then you go to the next wavelength, right? And the next wavelength is microwave, so your cup of coffee. And that peak to peak, I think it's either 6 centimeters or 1 centimeter from peak to peak. And what that wave does on water is it starts to agitate it. And so the molecule is kind of jumping and dancing around in your cup of coffee that you're heating up. And the action of that wave, the outcome is heat. You get a transfer of heat from that wave. So radiation wave is very, very, very fine. From peak to peak, it's like 10 to the -9 or 10 to the minus 13. I can't remember the numbers right now.
Wow, super small.
So
Yeah.
super, super tight. So radiation is an incredibly delicate wave. And what it does in the water molecule, like in the tumor, you got a tumor, we're trying to eradicate that. And in the water molecule there, it simply plunks off one of the hydrogens, just goes blink, and the wave plunks it off. It doesn't heat anything, it doesn't agitate anything. And that creates what's called a free radical. Now, normally you eat your greens and your beans and all your good things to get rid of free radicals in life, because they're the beginning of changing your DNA. But in radiation therapy, we kind of do it backwards. We use the free radicals against the tumor cells. So when the radiation goes in, it separates the water molecule. Those free radicals attach to the DNA, both your bad DNA, your cancer tumor cells, and your good DNA. Your good DNA knows how to fix itself. Every 6 hours, it checks all up and down the DNA, and it goes, you're not supposed to be here, and it clips and cleans and scrubs up its DNA before the cell divides. Okay. But the cancer cell, it doesn't check itself. That's the whole point. It never looked at itself in the first place, and it just divide without meaning and without a point of reference and without a hope. It just divides. So when those free radicals attach themselves to that DNA, then the DNA gets ripped into pieces when it divides. It's not a perfectly clean 2 copies. It's a sort of a dysfunctional copy, just like photocopying a recipe maybe 200 times. You can't see if it's a quarter cup or a third of a cup anymore. The DNA is not readable. So that's what the radiation does when it's working.
Is it like a shattered glass type of a thing? Kind of just a lot of pieces everywhere? Or?
Yes, just water molecules. So we have we call it a field, an area, a targeted area. Maybe it's 5 centimeters by 7 centimeters, depending on the size of the area. And the radiation goes in and it wafts right through. It just moves right through like a sound wave at a rock concert. It moves right through your body, right? It just passes through a very, very fine, delicate energy. And that energy works in the water molecules in that beam path, right where the tumor's sitting, where we aim it. And then those water molecules dissociate, attach like static electricity, like a balloon that you rub on your hair and stick to the wall. Those little free radicals attach to the DNA. The good cells can clean them up. That's why you get tired. And the bad cells disintegrate themselves. So by dividing and not being able to reproduce, it doesn't kill them. It just makes their code unreadable. It's unreadable code, just like Bitcoin. It's the same. So radiation is so drastically misunderstood. It's everywhere. It's in our light, in our eyes,
Dutchy,
in our speech.
If I can cut you off for 1 second, because I have a question. Like one thing I remember about radiation is that once you've got radiation, like it sticks around for 10,000s of years to break down. Is that correct, or am I?
No, that's it. Yes and no. So your microwave is a radiation machine. There's 2 ways to make radiation, right? There's rocks. So remember in the 70s or grade, if you're in school, then you got an eraser, like that real pink eraser, right? So that if you have a lump of cobalt that size, then that's what we used to use to radiate tumors back in the 60s and the 50s. So if it's a rock that has an isotope in it that's decaying, then the radiation is around. So sometimes you can drink something that has radiation in it, like radio-labeled sugar, like when you go for a PET scan. So yes, you are radioactive. But the other way we can make radiation, and that's the cancer treatment or your microwave, is it's an electron gun inside the machine and it's off, just like your microwave is not on right now. So you go to your microwave, it is not on, just like your light is not on. There's no radiation from the light. But as soon as you flip the switch, you make radiation. So in nuclear reactors, they take a lump, a rock, a piece of Earth. I don't know much about it, so I don't want to get into what kind of Earth.
It's like uranium they use, right?
Uranium, and it's decaying, right? And that's a whole other subject. Because I don't work with rocks. I don't work with lumps of radiation. I work with turn on the gun that creates the radiation. Got it. Okay. So if you have, if you have a rock, you need to cool it because it's heated up. And so, you need to have it in nuclear silos and things like that to keep an eye on it. But in this day and age, I mean, when we beam on and we turn the beam on for a person who's having treatment, there are so many checks. There's thousands of checks before it goes on. And all those people who are really rule followers, those are the ones that we want them in the nuclear plants, because the rule followers of society are so diligent, they make sure nothing goes wrong. So, I mean, either you have wind farms and you have vast, mining for silicon for this ridiculous solar, or you use a tiny piece of earth that has so much power in it, like a Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And then
Right.
you use that to pull the energy out of it. And yeah, there might be collateral damage, but there's collateral damage everywhere. No matter what process you have, there is collateral damage. You can't get away from it. You can't get away from suffering in life. There's always something that gives. So maybe in 50 years, out of 200 stations or 300, one has a malfunction. I don't know how that works, but yeah.
So
Right.
I have so many thoughts right now. First of all, thank you for this great explanation, and I'm loving, because I'm hearing like the passion. So, and it also reminds me a lot of myself and my Bitcoin journey as well. You know, it's like,
Right.
And it also affirms this theory I have. And it's not my theory. I heard other people say it as well. It's just like, and it's going to sound like really annoying to people, but like, there's a lot of smart people, or smart people tend to get Bitcoin first. You know, it seems to be all these engineers and whatnot that get it first, because Bitcoin can be, even though it's so simple, and it's, if you really get it, it's very simple, but to get it, it's hard.
I don't think it's smart. Just let me interrupt you just for a sec. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I think it's curiosity, because I'm not the smartest tool in the shed. I work with young people that are incredibly brilliant, but I think
but you have this great understanding of physics and math, I guess.
Right. Well, yeah, you have to be able to kind of figure out math a little bit. But then that's a skill. That's not an aptitude. That's just something you got to do. Math is a language. Math is a language like Spanish or Russian. You have to spend time doing it, right? It's not that you're good at math and you're not good at math. Yeah, you have to learn it, right? So sorry, I was cutting you off. So
okay, I want to add something in there too. I think that, sorry, Marcus, we'll let you get back to your point in a second.
Sure.
But I think that part of it too is, if you've been able to learn some language before, or you've been able to really dig in and get curious about one thing before, I think it's easier to understand Bitcoin, because you're capable of going down a rabbit hole, whether that's learning language or learning the language of radiation, or learning how to do something else that's extremely tough. If you've been able to learn that and take the time, I think that you have the capacity as well. It's easier to pick up the capacity to learn about Bitcoin, to learn about finance or cryptography or whatever gets you excited about it. I think
I think so too. I think I learned, what I anchored my Bitcoinness on was learning about the financial system and how that works. What is a bond? What is a stock? That's where I started Googling what is a bond. And bonds took me about 4 years to finally understand. It's just a loan. It's a loan from the people to the government. That's it. That's it.
I'll add on top of that, you also have to be able to separate the noise from the bullshit.
Exactly. And you make mistakes. You see, people are just like, oh my God, Bitcoin's so expensive. It's 20,000. It was 60. I can't get in now. But you better believe the people who bought the Bitcoin at 3,000 or 300, they've lost a lot of Bitcoin. I've lost a lot of Bitcoin learning. I mean, mine is not a curve that went straight up. You know, there was, I got involved with, who was it? Alex Mashinsky, because I thought I wanted a yield on my Bitcoin. That would be great. Just like a bond. It was just like a bond. Celsius. It was just like a bond, right? So you could use your Bitcoin, and that wasn't that a great idea?
7 to 12% risk free.
Incredible, just like the banks, right? And got sucked into that. So I think it's very important. Your heroes, you've got your heroes. Mine went from Raul to Alex, right? If you've got your heroes, you've got to make sure that you can see the other side of the heroes. So Sailor's the hero right now, right? He's doing great, but it's important. I mean, not to be anti-Sailor. I'm not anti-Sailor at all. I think he's great. But to see the other side of that, what would take him down? What would go the other way? Where are his inside thoughts? Just like Raul, he just wants to trade. Raul's addicted to adrenaline, and he needs to trade. So he'll take a trade over anything.
Right.
So
I think the biggest thing is just making yourself your own hero in the Bitcoin journey. making yourself and your family, those are the heroes that you need. And because just like you said, there's a lot of people that you think, oh, this person's, they're really good, and all of a sudden, boom, now they've lost everything, or they're doing exactly the opposite of what they were saying. So you need to make yourself your own hero in your Bitcoin journey.
I think so. It's almost like we've forgotten how to do that, or not forgotten, but we don't practice that anymore. Like, I think about young men. I was born in the 60s, so I think about young men when I was in high school. They were 14 years old, and they could bring cars, and they didn't even have their driver's license yet, but they got their dad or their brother to drive the car into the shop, and then they'd fix the car. And when they got their birthday in at grade 11 or grade 12, they could, take their car, and so they were invested in their lives. That car was their investment, and with that car they got the girl, and with the girl they got the job, and on it goes. They got the family. But I don't think society has room for men anymore, and that's another big topic, that we take young men and we drug them in school. We Adderall them. When they're not allowed to fight anymore, they've got to use their kindness, not their innate maleness. And then the young ones, I mean, you can't get your driver's license anymore till you're in your 20s, it seems, and you can't go out and experience the world. You can't make mistakes. So Bitcoin is almost like a reclamation. You can reclaim your maleness. And I mean, I could go on that topic too, but I think Bitcoin is a key for men to find their tribes again, to what it is to be a man, and what it is to thrive and participate in life, instead of stand by and wonder if you're going to offend somebody with your words.
Yes, I definitely agree. I think that men need to look to be more masculine, and women need to be feminine. And that's not,
I agree.
It's not a diss on men saying that
Exactly.
masculinity is toxic, and it's not a diss on femininity in saying that that's soft and weak. That,
Sure. I mean, if you want to be a
these...
tomboy girl, then be a tomboy girl. And if you want to be, a soft feminine man, then be that. But there's swaths of men out there and swaths of women who want to go back to traditional values. And I think that's where El Salvador comes back in, because it's a Catholic run country. And I think it appeals to so many people because of the values of El Salvador, because of that structure. And then they put Bitcoin in the center of their monetary system. And all of a sudden you've got a place where you can see yourself grow and thrive.
Yeah. Okay. So Marcus, we've cut you off for the last 10 minutes.
Oh yeah. We've moved way beyond that point now. No, another point, what I wanted, you mentioned like the whole exponential thing, and we were talking about getting into Bitcoin, and it's just, it sounds so simple, but a lot of people, and even like Biden, when you hear Biden saying, oh, but inflation hasn't gone up, it's only gone up a little bit since last month, and it's going to go back down. Or Christine Lagarde saying it's a hump, so it's going to come back down. Yeah, but you don't get second order derivatives, it's like, sure, it's, like, how do I explain this? If you accelerate, your speed goes up, right? And then if you reduce the acceleration, your speed is still very high. Now you're going 100 miles per hour. You're still going 100 miles per hour. You have to decelerate first to bring it back down. So this is how they like gaslight the public, saying, no, it's a hump. Inflation will come back down. Yeah, but my prices aren't coming back down unless you bring inflation negative, making it deflationary. It's this kind of stuff that, basic concepts of math and science that people need to understand. And also, while, the most basic thing, I think one of the first things I noticed when I looked at the Bitcoin price graph, and I always have to remember that meme, oh, don't buy Bitcoin because it's going to crash again. And it was only when I saw that meme that I realized, hey, wait a minute, this whole price history prior to like the last all-time high, which just looked like it was like flat, then there was this one big run up, and now the bubbles burst. It happens each cycle, but once you turn the graph into like a log chart, then you see like the whole history of it, and you see that logarithmic exponential growth, right?
So, on a logarithmic scale. It's logarithmic scale, and then it's exponential on a logarithmic. So it's double exponential. So when you see that, all of a sudden it becomes very clear. And I think one of the things I want to tell people who are just getting or kind of scared of Bitcoin, it's simply you're changing your money from US dollars to pesos, or pesos to rubles, or rubles to rupees. It's simply an exchange. You're not buying something. You're just doing a currency exchange. And
great
as
point.
a Canadian, we would much rather hold US dollars because they're worth way more. And so would anyone in the world. I mean, aren't we all scrambling for US dollars right now because it's worth more? So get out of the fiat world and move into the information. You see, right now, you and I've never met, and you can't see my face because I don't want to dox myself because I'm still active and I work with patients. So I need to respect their privacy. But you and I mean, we can communicate with this iPhone. You don't understand how important the ability to transfer energy, ideas, thoughts across the internet. But the only thing that will block that is transferring money across the internet. I can't send you $17.63. I can't do it with the systems because the Swift banking system cost me a $70 fee just to send money. It's 70 bucks right there.
Yeah.
So we can communicate our ideas and our thoughts and meet each other and get all kinds of dopamine going on, which is always nice to feel. But the money system, the exchanging of our stored energy is still stuck in the 70s. It's stuck in email land. That's what the Swift system is. It's just an email server back
Up until
and forth.
Bitcoin, correct? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
so
this week I was kind of orange pilling my uncle, and I helped him download a Lightning wallet. I took the QR code, put it on Twitter, and said, "Hey, send him a few sats just so he can see how this works." And boom, he started getting in. Just random people on Twitter. All Bitcoiner plebs were starting to send them a few sats, and it was really cool. And shout outs to anyone who did send them sats that's watching, just because he was. Every time he got sats, he'd shout back, 69 more sats. And then my aunt was like, you know why they're sending you 69 sats? And he was like, oh, what are they? And then I say, where could you do this before? Because, someone from New Zealand sent them sats, or people from South America, from all over the world. And I said, what other system can do this that they could send him money for free? And then they go, oh, they could do it with Venmo.
Nope, we can't. I mean, can you send me Venmo money from here in the States, right? Can you send it to Canada? No. We're so locked down here.
With Zelle, I said, you guys haven't lived outside of the US where you had to make those transfers. And Bitcoin has no borders, while the dollar and all fiat, there's definite borders.
This is literally how me and Dutchy first started talking. I don't remember. I think I was discussing with somebody else on Twitter, but like, send me a QR code and I'll send you some sats. Somebody was a little bit like, I'm missing the English word here. A little not hesitant, or a little bit skeptical about how it all works and stuff. I was like, well, just send me a QR code, and anybody else or something. I'm not sure. Maybe you remember, Dutchy.
Well, then you reached out. I think you reached out to me because I'm at the very end of technology. I didn't grow up with technology, so I understand the idea of Bitcoin, but using the phone and all that to do Bitcoin is a different world for me, right? I have to spend a lot of time. So you're just like, download this wallet, and then you sent me money. Yeah,
I was like, let's do a cross-border payment, from Amsterdam
and
to
bang, done. And that's amazing. Like, you can send 5,000. You take a penny, an American penny, divide it into 5,000 pieces. You can send somebody one sat, or you can send them $5 billion. So it's Bitcoin is not what can Bitcoin do for you? It's the world is going to move, just like we communicate on phones. It's going to move to transfer of energy, monetary energy, through phones and through technology. So the guy that lives in Saudi and he wants to buy the castle in Scotland for, let's say, 50 million. He doesn't have to go through the Swift system anymore. It takes days to get that money through. And then it gets blocked because, maybe they don't trust him. He can just send it, he can buy his castle, 10 minutes, final settlement. And I think why it's taking so much time to get the banks and the pension funds and the hedge funds involved is that Bitcoin is the first monetary system that goes right back to the beginning. It's the monetary system of the individual. It's me and you, Marcus, when you send me money. And it's not set up for trusted systems. Like, if you go to the bank,
they totally understand it's a threat to their whole existence and their whole model.
Oh yeah, but they got to get on board, because if they don't get on board, they're going to be left behind, like Kodak and like, you know, Blockbuster. It's over.
Yep.
You can't take the internet back. Can you imagine if we're letter writing right now? Can you imagine that? Just writing a letter to you about how I think and feel.
Yeah.
Imagine,
You know,
imagine
this is exactly point, and this takes us back to the whole energy debate too, right? Because I completely
Right.
agree with you on the nuclear part.
Right.
That was another point I was going to make. People are afraid of new technology, or they'll add narratives to it to say why it's not safe, right?
Right.
I mean, I have an aerospace engineering background, and one of the coolest things that I remember was that, you know, a lot of people are afraid to get on airlines. You know, people are afraid of flying because you know, they see all these movies of airplanes crashing. But when you look at the numbers, right? Sure, there's horrible airplane crashes, and once the airplane goes down, usually all 300 people inside die. But if you actually aggregate all the numbers and you look at how many people die because of airline crashes, it's one of the safest modes of transportation.
Exactly.
Apart
and
from
eating
the
sugar
elevator.
is the one that kills you.
The elevator is
the
the most
elevator?
safest. Yeah, and next behind the elevator, it's the airline, which is the most safest. And getting into a car, you know, motorcycle's way more dangerous, but getting into a car is actually super dangerous. But nobody's scared of getting into a car. And this is kind of what you see with nuclear energy as well.
Yeah. I mean, I see the word radiation. What do you think? You don't think it's like, I think of my radiation machines, the linear accelerator. I think of it as a time machine. It gives you your future back. So you got a problem in your body and it ain't good. And then we get the energy in there. We break it down. We break that problem down. And then you get your next 20 years of your life back. You know, that's the aim, or next 30 years, right? So I think of radiation as a time machine, that it gives you your life back. So we have to start rebranding what these energies are, but we need the men to do this. Sorry, I know I'm probably alone in this thought, but women are too neurotic. They care too much about suffering. Yeah, I got to flesh that one out. So maybe we won't go down that path.
Should we disclose if you are a man or a woman?
My pronouns are honk honk.
The trucker convoy.
Yeah, I'm a girl. I'm a girl. Yeah, bit of a tall girl.
But to try to bring it back, right? So we see it in energy, right? So we have this better technology, which is nuclear. However, the whole ESG narrative and whatnot, you know, whatever narrative they come up with, it causes a bunch of FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and it causes even European countries to shut down their freaking nuclear reactors.
Oh my God! Oh my God! All those old people that can't walk properly.
Bitcoiners, this is something that we Bitcoiners really have to consider, right? Like, yes, Bitcoin is the better technology, but we're still dealing with human elements on this planet, which can be completely irrational for a very long time.
Well, they're making emotional decisions.
That you're thinking, like, what kind of clown world are we living in? But this is literally what we're seeing all around us every day. So the path, I have no doubt whatsoever that Bitcoin is, you know, like everything we say it will be. It's just the path it will take us to get there can be very rough and unknown.
Oh, so I think you can't stop it. You just, it cannot be stopped. Are you really going to go back to letter writing? I mean, are you going to, if you can send 1/5,000th of a penny, are you going to go back to Western Union and getting charged 30 or 40%?
Answer is no.
People are not going back.
But will we go through like another couple of years, or I don't want to put like years or date or time stamp on it, but are we going to go through another phase of bureaucrats adding some weird nonsensical rules or programs to try and manage it in some other direction? Yeah.
I think once they figure out the trustless system in the banks, because it's all based on trust. If you go into the bank vault, there's two of you and there's cameras, and you each have a key and you get the gold bar out. You don't go into the bank by yourself and then deliver the gold to the guy by yourself, right? So that whole system, the whole structure of the banking system is based on a two-person, at least a two-person, test back and forth. But with Bitcoin, it's a one person, and there's no backsies, right? With banking, you can go back, you can reverse transactions, but with Bitcoin, there is no backsies. Once the money is sent, it's over. You cannot get a refund on that. So they have to squish two paradigms together. And I think they're working very, very hard to do it. But, you know, you look at the age of the bankers that make the decision, they're, you know, they're in their 60s and 70s and 50s. And the ones that can run the computers to change this over are in their younger years. So yeah, I think it's going to be a bit of a bumpy road, but the bank or the hedge fund or the pension or the insurance fund that figures it out first, people are going to flock to it. So
Yeah.
it's a race. It's a race to get this figured out.
It's pretty amazing how Bitcoin mirrors real life, because in real life, it just got me thinking right now, when you say there's no backsies, right? There's things that are irreversible. When a moment happens, you can't get that moment back.
That's right.
No putting the genie back on the bottle.
Happens, and you can't, there's no time machine that makes you go, you know, I'm going to get that back. That doesn't happen. And so it's the same thing with Bitcoin. You make a transaction, you broadcast that transaction, you sign it, and it's done. There's no reversing it. Yeah, that person can give you the money, can send a new transaction, but that's something new that's created in new time.
Yeah, the control is gone. The control is completely gone. And I think that's what the banks have to figure out, is who's going to hold the keys? How are they going to hold the keys? How are they going to deal with the collateral damage of having to get the control back? You know, it's a big problem for them, but I think they're working on it very, very hard, because you can't ignore it anymore. You know, in January, didn't the US default on its obligations to Russia?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a whole other topic, right? So the US dollar is kind of done that way, right? It's over. So something's coming up in its place. Hey, I just wanted to make a little talk, if you don't mind, about solar energy. So if you look at a plant, I've got a little bit of a plant background. I took a diploma in horticulture. So if you look at a plant, right, that whole structure, all the limbs and the root system and the branches and all that holds a solar panel called a leaf. And if you look at a tree, if you got a tree outside, look at a tree right now, all those leaves are little mini solar panels, and they're just chonking away all day long, getting that sun energy and converting it, right? Most of the energy gets put into the structure. So mining for the solar panels, building for the solar panels, cleaning them, purifying the silicon. The energy you get out of a tree, it gets put to a fruit. That's it. It's just a fruit, an apple or a cherry, right? Once a year. If solar was strong enough, trees would walk. Plants would walk if solar was powerful enough. But solar is not powerful enough to ambulate a society. It's okay for trickle charge, just like making, you know, running your iPhone or something like that, but it can't ambulate a society. And I think that's what's missing in the conversation. If you look at a tree, they're not walking.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And if there is a some type of natural disaster that creates huge clouds, then the sun can't get through.
Right, the tree's done. There's no cherries on the tree. There's no energy. Yeah, exactly.
I think that's why we evolved into eating as humans.
Right.
And that's how we build energy.
That's right. So we can ambulate.
Exactly.
Yeah, so we can ambulate, right? I mean, ambulating in the oceans takes a lot less energy than ambulating on land, right? So you got to think about that connection too. That when they came out on when creatures came out on land, they had to borrow energy from other systems to energize themselves, to ambulate. And you know, us using soaking dinosaurs, I mean, that should be used for lubrication very sparingly, not to go get a McDonald's. That energy, that oil energy, should be used so sparingly, because once we run out of soaking dinosaurs, we can't really replace that, right? So I think we should go to nuclear hard and fast.
It does make sense, you know. Maybe we can figure out why. We can get to the bottom of this, of why we aren't using nuclear energy, or why that's not even an option, you know.
Because the image, you think of nuclear and you think of melting skin, right? It's the image that it has.
It is interesting, like what you're saying. It's the narrative around it, and it's funny because, you know, when they say, "Look, I'm fat, I'm obese, I need to change," they don't change. Then another year goes by, I need to change, they don't change. And someone says, "Hey, look, all you really have to do is change your diet a little bit, eat a little bit healthier, and go work out and go to the gym. And
Yeah.
it becomes this thing that's just very hard for people to do. And when people make that change, it's when they've hit their rock bottom. And rock bottom is different for everyone, right? I've had enough pain, enough discomfort living the way that I am, that I'm going to make the change. And I think the same thing is with Bitcoin, right? Everyone has a pain with the current monetary system.
Yeah, there's no way the young people can flourish. There's no way. Cars are $50,000, rents are $2,000. I work with a bunch of 25-year-old guys and gals. They're so smart. They are so smart. They all have $80,000, $100,000 debts, and they're busting their ass to keep people alive all day long. And they have no home, no car, no hope, and they're fine with it. Somehow they're just fine with it. And I'm looking at them, and I'm looking at the older therapists that are raising their kids by phone, because they got to have the kids in daycare, and they watch them on phone all day long and making money to pay the $1 million houses where I live. And you get free healthcare out of that, but you got to wait 3 years to get a scan. So that doesn't work. It's all breaking down. It's breaking down in every facet of life.
Have you been successful in orange pilling any of your coworkers?
Oh my God, it's so hard. It's so hard. It's so hard. Yeah, you know who orange pills is the best? Is the young cashiers at the clothing stores, the young women. I'm just like, what are you doing here? You look smart. And then I can get them orange pill. They'll download a wallet. But the people I work with that are in their 50s and 60s, they're still buying bonds. They're still talking about robo investing. And I'm just like, well, you're just going to be the product on that one. You're going to lose all your money. Buy Bitcoin.
But the elite. Right. And so that's what I'm saying is a lot of these people, they won't change until they've hit rock bottom to make that.
Yeah, that's right. It has to hurt. It has to hurt. Right. But it's unfortunate that it's going to be the society that's hurting, with our prime minister who's just running our country into the ground. You have to experience pain. Either you experience it sooner or later.
Yes.
But you have to go through the pain. I mean, life, we have been without suffering for a good 50, 60, 70 years. We think that's the norm. And I see a lot of suffering. I see incredible, deep suffering. And I know that even when you go into your death and you pass to the next part of your life, you have to pay. Death isn't easy. It's a whole bunch. You have to work very, very, very hard to get your release into the next part of the life. So I'm done. I think I tapped out.
I have another question for you, because look, finding Bitcoin comes with like this rabbit hole, and your mind gets blown on like multiple levels. Like I've heard you go from exponentials to mining and to masculinity and feminine. You know what I want to say. So it has all these areas. But what I'm really curious about now that you found Bitcoin, right? And your mind has been blown and blown and blown. And what do you see? What is the impact of that towards the future? Besides, of course, you buying Bitcoin and expecting more people to adopt it, what is it? What do you expect it to do to you on like a personal level?
Well,
will it change your life? Are you going to do things different?
Yes, I'm going to leave Canada, I think, because I don't think I like the way it's going. Like right across from me is getting built a crystal meth house, clean injection room. It's 6 stories high. It's all there. We're gonna care for everybody. And I think our society, one treatment of cancer is $3,000 or $4,000 per treatment. We cannot sustain that in Canada. It's not sustainable. So when I read about Bitcoin, I see this hope for so many levels. Like, Bitcoiners are men, usually some women, usually men who want to start families, who want to participate in their life, not just, watch it go by and sort of, I don't know, what's it called? Survive it. I don't think men want to survive their lives. They want to participate it. And I see Bitcoin as this almost this bringing it back. I can't explain it. I still have to think about this. It's not a neutralizer and it's not an equalizer. It's all like Michael Saylor says, it's hope. It's the beginning of hope.
It's the sovereign individual, right? It gives you back your power.
It gives you back your power. And didn't that start with Jesus? I mean, wasn't he
puts
the
the levers
individual?
back in your hands to
Exactly.
Yeah, and it gives us power that, honestly, we're saying it gives us back power. It's giving us power that humans have never had access to ever.
I think it's deeper than power. I think it's deeper than having power, because power is able to take energy and then do what you want with it. I think it's hope, because hope is the most important human emotion. This is what I've experienced, working for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
So, you get a lump somewhere and you feel it in your throat or in your breast or whatever. And you're like, oh my God, I hope that's not cancer. This is your first hope. And you go to the doctor and, well, it is, right? And then your next hope is, well, I hope they can get it all. And so you go through treatment and a few years go by and then you get a sore bone and nope, but you didn't get it all. So, well, then you hope that we can control it for 15 or 20 years, because we can now, right? It's more like a diabetes or something you manage. And so that's your hope, right? But, years go by and then the hopes become smaller and smaller. They become hopeless, little tiny hopes that when the grandkids come or Christmas, that you don't have too much pain then and you can participate. You won't have to be in hospital or something. So it's the hope. It's not the journey. It's the hope you have in the process. That is what's gone from society. I think having hope. And
absolutely.
I think Bitcoin brings the hope. It brings it back. It gives a framework of which all kinds of people can build their lives on. So it's not the energy. It's not how much money I make. It's not the price of Bitcoin. It's nothing like that. It is not a leveler. It doesn't level. It's almost like it's a structure again that we can experience as a society, as a community that organizes us. I mean, religion is gone and gender roles are gone. What do we have left then if we don't have any structures? There are no structures left to keep people in their lane a little bit so everyone can trust what the other person's doing. So with Bitcoin, I think it's a fundamental structure that comes out of that makes bankers behave. And
you can have woke or you can have hope.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Woke or hope. Pick your pony.
Yeah, this has been a massively great conversation, Dutchy. Thank you so much for having this conversation. With big surprise always. I mean, for us, it's also a big surprise. We get to meet all these awesome people online on Bitcoin Twitter. And some stand out a little bit more. Some like we have who do we have on this Thursday on the podcast, Sean?
Yeah, so we'll kind of close out here, but Dutchy.
Oh, that wasn't my point. I just wanted to say, we have like the bigger, most famous name, but I very much enjoy these conversations, and we've had a few, like with just regular plebs like you and I, and everybody's going down the rabbit hole, coming from different backgrounds, and the transformation it has on people is real. And it's one of the most fascinating things I see, and that gives me a lot of hope as well, because it's one of those, I don't want to say second order effects that will happen, but as more and more people become Bitcoiners and more people are changed by Bitcoin, it's literally going to change society, and that's something I love to think about. Hard for me to bring in words, but I love.
Can I make one little point for the new plebs that are coming into it and they buy it at a certain price and then it drops down? When you look at that graph, why don't you, instead of taking your little ruler and going from the tops, whatever the tops were, I don't know, $200, and then 2,000, 20,000, then 60, 70,000. Don't align your sights with the tops. Align your sights to the bottom of the graph. And then you just save yourself a whole bunch of emotion. You don't feel so, emotionless, mostly like you're being, I don't know, abandoned by Bitcoin. And the other thing I want to say is if you want to buy Bitcoin, there's 4 times a year that's a really good time to buy that. I've noticed now. I'm not an expert in this, but it's called triple witching. So Google that. Triple as in 3 and witching as in Halloween, triple witching. And that's when options expire, 3 kinds of options. And Bitcoin price usually is pretty cheap on the Sunday after the triple witching. I think it's March, June, September, and December. It's the 3rd Friday, but it's all on the internet. Just Google triple witching. So if you've got some money saved up and you don't want to do the dollar cost averaging and you don't know when to buy and it's going up and you're just, buying in and then losing money, just buy on those days and you'll get a pretty good price on those days. But that, of course, is not financial advice because I am not a financial person. So there you go.
Well,
I love it. A little advice there. Oh, no, it's not advice. I have made so many. I've told people to buy at all points in Bitcoin, high and low.
I just
Some
follow
of them I
Sailor. When he
regret
buys, I buy.
because
Yeah.
I have to say it's easier to get people to buy than it is to get people to hold. So
Right.
And when they sell, when Bitcoin is going low, it's not fun because for some reason you still feel somewhat of a responsibility for that.
Of course you do. Yeah, of course you do. Because that's just,
so I guess the most safest advice you can give anybody is, study, do your research, build that conviction, and
just buy a little bit. Just start a little bit, because once you've got some and you got your wallet set up and everything, then
definitely get skin in the game. That's the best learning.
You can't. You can't do it alone. And there's no one thing. You've got to go through the suffering yourself. You've got to suffer to learn Bitcoin. You've got to. It's not easy. It's like a marriage almost. You've really got to work at it.
It's another place where Bitcoin mirrors real life.
Exactly. Yeah. You want to be
real life is not up only. Real life
exactly.
Success is a squiggly line that finally makes its way up.
It's like proof of work, right? It's literally also proof of work. I love the term proof of work because,
I love it too.
Like a guitar player, if somebody plays really well guitar, this person has put a lot of work into it, right? You can't fake that,
or guitar, or exactly.
If you held on to Bitcoin for a long time, there's a lot of proof of work there. You know what it is to struggle through hard times, live through good times, that kind of stuff, So
exactly.
It's never one straight easy line up. It doesn't work that way.
Exactly.
Well, Dutchy, thanks for coming on. I think that'll do it for today. Honestly,
that's awesome, Sean and Marcus. I really appreciate it's my first ever, and I really, I try to tell my friends at work, and they glaze over. Now they just won't be in the same room as me anymore, because I just always they're complaining about their interest rates going up in their houses, and I look at them and I said, what would Dutchy say? And they say, Bitcoin fixes this, So,
awesome.
There's another Fed rate hike coming out today, so
exactly.
Keep our eyes peeled to what happens there.
Sounds good.
We need a lot more Dutchies in the workplace as well, because don't underestimate how important that is. I mean, you are literally orange people giving them the multiple contacts, and it's people need that. So
I think so. It's not a one-time talk. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, well,
all right, Sean, I'll shut up now.
We'll close out. Just a reminder for everyone listening, Q from the Bitcoin Magazine joins the Meme Factory podcast this Thursday at 7:30 p.m. Don't miss out. And remember, as always, what you see here, what you hear here, when you leave here, don't just let it stay here. Please share if you learned something, you liked it, you're entertained, you love Dutchy because she's awesome, or Marcus because he's the man. Share it, or give us a like, give us a comment, and come to the halving party in El Salvador. That's in 2024. Don't miss that either. As for Bitcoiners Guide, episode 31 from Dutchy, Plan Marcus, and Big Sean. We're over now. Peace.